Not right clicking. Oh. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sovereign Lovestream.
Hi, happy Sovereign Sunday. Thank you for joining us this week. We have a really interesting topic.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a really good show today. Not to pat myself or us on the back, but
I think it's an interesting topic,
yeah.
And we're excited to see some of the comments and opinions about this particular topic. So thank you for being here with us. How do you want to start off?
Well, I have a lot of notes. We both have a lot of notes to go through. I think kind of the starting point for the discussion is, I guess, what is monogamy, right? We kind of all have this idea of what we think monogamy is or what it should be, but I think we take a lot for granted. I certainly did. And I think the starting point is kind of the question is, why do you think monogamy is, if you're a monogamous person, why you think monogamy is right for you or right in general, right? I think a lot of people in our society think monogamy is the only moral choice. I think that comes from a very Judeo-Christian kind of modern Judeo-Christian set of values, because obviously in the early days of Christianity, there was a lot of, and Judaism, there was a lot of polyamory, or at least polygamy. So what do you think monogamy is, and why do you think monogamy is the right choice? That might be a good place to start, to just kind of have that idea in your mind as we
explore this topic.
As we explore the topic.
Yeah. And for us, we're exploring this topic just as what we've come to understand over the years of our relationship, and trying to find a path and a style of relationship that works for us. This is not to say we believe that monogamy is the right way, the only way. It's what's right for us, what's worked for us, and how we've kind of shifted from what we thought was the right monogamy, and that really turned out to be something pretty toxic for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the steps that we've had to take to get to this place of what we call conscious monogamy. We've read a lot of books, done a lot of research. As we've mentioned before, we are major researchers, both of us. We like to discover new things, look at different opinions and ideas, and kind of integrate. We like to take what's best from the different opinions and ideas out there and find what works for us. And we offer our research over to you guys, and we're happy, like I said, to take any tips or ideas, any books that you guys have, or people that you guys suggest we listen to or look into. We'd be more than happy to do that. We're always looking for ways to just expand our consciousness, because the truth is, like Danny said, a lot of us enter relationships based on these ideas that we've seen our parents follow, our society, our church, our religion, our friends enter, and we just think, okay, this is the way. It seems to work for people, even if at times it doesn't work. It's just the way things are. So it's always a good idea to kind of step outside of your scope and learn something new.
Yeah. So I will start by answering the questions I asked you guys myself. So, are we monogamous? Is the majority of society monogamous because we choose that? Because we think, you know what? I want to be with one person because I want to only share energy with that person. I want to be able to focus. Or is it just kind of because our culture, religion, or society has told us this is the right thing to do, right? So my first marriage, I would say, was maybe a combination of both. I'm not going to say like there was no conscious thought put into it. I believe my first wife was God's chosen person for me, and that I would be with her for the rest of my life. I think where that starts to become problematic is when you're only in the relationship for the sake of monogamy, for the sake of, I can't get divorced because I'm a monogamous person. That means I only have one partner for my whole life. And, you know, I already got married, so it's too late now. I have to just stay with this person no matter what. I would call that toxic monogamy or unconscious monogamy, where it's more codependence than anything else. And codependence is extremely unhealthy. I think that this comes from a belief, at least for me, a subconscious belief that, and I say subconscious because I was not consciously aware that I believed my wife was supposed to meet all of my needs. And I think that this is a myth. The idea that one person can complete you or meet all of your needs, I think it's a toxic idea to begin with. And I think that this is the premise that a lot of people kind of take as their premise for monogamy. And then what ends up happening is there are people that realize, oh, yeah, that's toxic. And then they swing to the other direction into polyamory. And I just want to make a disclaimer that this is not a criticism of polyamory in any way, because I believe that it is possible to have healthy polyamorous relationships. I have not seen too many of them. We have experience with people in the polyamorous communities, and we have not really seen too many of those relationships really work in a healthy way. I think going to either extreme as a reaction to one or the other, right? Like, oh, monogamy is codependence, and so there it's toxic. I'm going to swing to the other end. But if it's not consciously thought out either on that end, then that's not going to be healthy either. I think whatever paradigm you choose, as long as you're consciously moving through it and staying present and constantly checking in with yourself firstly, and also with your partner or partners, then any paradigm can be healthy.
I think it all depends on how you're coming into the relationship. Are you coming into the relationship from a place of need, from a place of lack? I lack connection everywhere else. I lacked connection in childhood. My needs weren't met in childhood. So I'm looking for a partner that will meet all of my needs, or multiple partners that will meet all of my multiple needs. Or are you coming into the relationship or relationships from a place of abundance? I've met all of my needs. I can meet all of my needs myself. I'm a whole person. I'm a full person. I am aware of the unhealed wounds that I carry, and I'm in it to look at those wounds and heal those wounds with my partner or by myself. I'm willing to look at that. And I think a lot of us enter relationships looking to be fulfilled, looking to have somebody heal our wounds, someone to cover those wounds, to run away from the wounds. And that can lead to toxicity. And obviously that's not, I don't think many of us enter those relationships with that idea. It's like Danny said, it's all subconscious. We just are going in there, and when our partner doesn't do what we want them to do, we get frustrated. We blame our partner. We blame society. We blame all men or all women or all, all of these things for all of the reasons why we're unhappy. And the truth is, once you jump from relationship to relationship with that mentality, you're not going to find a partner that is going to make you happy, because you're not really facing your wounds. And I think it's that took us a really long time to figure out.
Yeah.
I think one of the major realizations that we had early on is that our partners are going to trigger our wounds. We are going to have a trigger fest. That's what every relationship is. It's a trigger fest.
And they're supposed to trigger your wounds, right? So your partner isn't there to fulfill your needs. Your partner is there to reflect back to you what your needs are. When you're being triggered, that's highlighting what your need is. For me, my core wound was a mother wound. I've discussed this many times on the show. I felt that my mother I did not feel loved in a holistic way from my mother. I felt to some degree neglected emotionally by my mother. And a lot of that was really just my perception. It was a false perception I had, which I've now come to terms with. But growing up believing that, I was looking for women to meet that need, to replace my mother. And that is why that's a very primal archetype that we all, men or women, that's why they say we marry our parents. We look for partners who who reflect the same qualities as our parents, because we're looking to relive and correct the traumas from our childhood.
And obviously, it's not a conscious thing. You don't go
Right.
out into the world looking for somebody that reminds you of your parents.
Some people do.
But maybe. But the truth is, and we've talked about this before, we pick partners that make us feel like we're home. I mean, it's a very common expression,
Yes.
right? I met this person and it felt like home. Why did it feel like home? It felt like home because something even super minor. It doesn't have to be this glaring comparison. It could be just this minor thing reminds you of something that one of your parents did, and you're like, oh, I feel comfortable here.
I think it goes even deeper. It's an energetic presence or an archetypal presence.
Yes.
That's what we're doing. Our reptilian brain recognizes the archetype of our father or mother, and we're attracted to it because it's our parent. And even if they were abusive, even if we suffered from them, or, sometimes we legitimately suffer abuse, and other times we perceive we're being abused when we're really not. It's a subjective perception. But to us, that perception is reality. And to our subconscious mind, that perception is the reality. And so we're seeking, we recognize the archetype of our parents in our lovers, and that's what attracts us to them.
And so then what we end up doing in the relationship is, in some ways, or rather what the ego ends up doing, is recreating the scenario. It kind of pokes at the person to recreate the scenario that we experienced in childhood. And then when your partner doesn't react the way you want them to in order to heal that childhood wounds, you get triggered, and your ego is subconsciously telling you, see, this person is proving that you're not loved, or that you're not worthy, or that whatever story your ego has told you at that point. And so you continue to perpetuate that. And that's why sometimes if you're not looking at it, it just seems like this person is poking at you, is intentionally annoying you, hurting you, so many other things.
And sometimes the other partner is actually doing those things purposely,
yes.
because they're also being triggered, because they were attracted to their archetype of their parents. And sometimes it's complementary, and sometimes it's they're opposites attract. And what happens is, the purpose of this is to trigger you, but this is a good thing, right? It's not about getting rid of the triggers or avoiding the triggers. It's about healing the triggers. So when your partner triggers you, instead of saying, you're the problem, you're triggering me, and this extrapolates out to society as well, right? Cancel culture comes from us not wanting to face our triggers. Oh, you triggered me? You're canceled. So instead of canceling your lover for triggering you, what is it? What primal wound? What deep childhood wound is it inside of me that's being triggered right now? And one of the techniques we've learned is to ask ourselves, how old are we right now in this, when we're feeling this trigger?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And sometimes it's amazing. Our minds are amazing things, and our subconscious mind is, and our ego is actually a beautiful thing. It protects us. So our 5-year-old ego, who feels like my 5-year-old ego, who felt like my mother didn't pay me enough attention, will get triggered, or used to get triggered, when Vanessa would go and want to have some alone time. And I'd be like, oh my God, she doesn't love me. She doesn't want to be around me 24/7. Why don't you want to be on top of me 24/7? We should always be together. If you love me, you would have no problem being with me. People need space, right? Now I've internalized that. I've worked through that trauma. And so now she could go in the other room and I'm totally cool with it. But that's the trigger, right? So instead of attacking her, you're abandoning me. Why are you abandoning me to the other room?
Or why don't you want to be around me? Why are you always trying to get away from me? You
Yeah.
know, things like that. And they don't, sometimes they're very minor things.
Mhm.
Other times they can be bigger wounds, more traumatic wounds. This is also not to say that you should stay in an abusive relationship.
No.
Obviously, if your trigger, if the trigger is in and of itself abuse, there's no need to stay in that relationship.
Right.
We're not advocating for staying
No.
in a relationship where you're being abused, but we are, we are coming from a place where we've learned to observe those triggers. And the truth is that the more these triggers have come up and the more we've worked through them, the more intimate our relationship has become.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, those triggers, what those childhood wounds do to us is that they create these walls to protect us. And the more we work through those triggers and through those wounds, the walls start to come down and the intimacy is greater. There are less things blocking us from each other, from being our authentic selves.
I want to say more about, I want to delve a little bit deeper into that, what you just mentioned about not staying in abusive relationships. You have to, so there's a quote that I just heard yesterday, actually. The quote is, intimacy is when two boundaries meet. When our boundaries meet together, that's when there's intimacy. If we're crossing each other's boundaries, that's not intimacy, it's codependence. If you're tolerating abuse from your partner because you love them, that's codependency. You love them, but you're letting them abuse you. And that's not healthy love. It's not healthy boundaries. And to know your boundaries and to know your partner's boundaries, you have to know yourself. You have to know what is right for you. So, trying to think of an example of this. So for going back to the example I just used, one of Vanessa's boundaries is she is a person that needs a lot of alone time. That's one of her boundaries. Now me, I actually did find that I do need alone time, but back in the beginning of our relationship, I didn't believe I did. And I was like, no, because the wounded child needed constant attention. So whenever she would try to be alone, I would want to fight with her. No, you got to fight with me, stay with me, or not fight with me. You have to stay with me. And it would turn into a fight because I was trying to cross that boundary of her needing alone time. So that was codependency, right? I wasn't coming from a healthy place of being like, I love you and I want to spend time with you. My inner child felt desperate. It needed her attention because it felt desperate for that love. And that desperation, what came from a lack of me knowing myself. I did not know that I had that mother wound. And now that I do understand that, every once in a while, and it's not like when you heal something like this, it never comes up again. Every once in a while, my inner child says, we need her attention, or we need attention right now. It wants to throw a temper tantrum. And I can say to myself, you're safe. You're loved. She loves you. She needs a few minutes to herself. She's doing one of her online classes, or she's reading her book. She's going to pay attention to you later. We can wait. We can give her some space, right? And that's how you talk yourself through and work through those triggers without, you're triggering me, you're abandoning me. So either you have to change or I'm out of this relationship.
And it also creates the space to be able to express your needs in a healthy way, right? In that case, for example, if I'm not taking a class at the time, if I'm not doing something like super important in that moment, he can say, you know, I'd like to spend some time with you. I miss you or something. And it comes from a very different place than a place that accuses you of abandonment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else? What else is there?
There's a lot.
So one of the books that we came across while we were learning all about relationships, as we were trying to figure out the relationship that worked for us, was actually my best friend recommended a book called To Be a Man by Dr. Robert Augustus Masters. And this guy basically was writing this book from explaining the basically everything that a man goes through, the way our society treats men, the way masculinity is looked at, from things like toxic masculinity to, you know, just everything under the sun you could possibly think of that men have to experience. And I mean, it's a book directed at men, but I read this book and it was really amazing. It was fascinating to understand the male perspective written this way. And I recommended it to another friend who's also a research nerd like we are. And she was like, this guy wrote a book called Transformation Through Intimacy, and it's a guide to conscious monogamy. And I looked up the book, I ordered it, got it, read it. I think we listened to it as an audiobook also. It really broke down the different stages of relationships, the different types of codependent relationships, interdependent relationships, and how to there are relationships where both parties are just obsessed with keeping the relationship alive, even if they have to go back on their own boundaries, if they have to, you know, to the point where they're just so disconnected trying to keep the relationship alive that it is just so harmful. And we realized as we listened to this book, actually, that we had gone through all of the stages of monogamous relationships, which was interesting because it was showing our growth. And I was reviewing the book as we were preparing for the show today, and the being-centered relationship is in his opinion, the most conscious relationship. And basically what he says in that is that as you go through each stage, you absorb the previous stage. You don't transcend it. You're not better than it. You haven't left it behind and looked down upon it, but you accept that you were there at one point. And, you know, one of the biggest things in our healing process is that we've had to learn to accept every stage of our relationship, even the most toxic stages of our relationship, because they led us to where we are now. You know, as I said earlier, it was a trigger fest. And that means that we poked at all of our wounds. I mean, I don't think there's a wound either of us has that hasn't been poked at this point.
I think I wanted to mention Lisette is making this comment here about monogamy in general. And we totally agree, Lisette. I mean, we are in that place where we have decided. So for me, I resonated with polyamory, but really what it was is my sex addiction. I had or have, I'm in recovery, I would say, a sex addiction. Although I'm not sure that I believe that once you're an addict forever. I think you can heal that. So I don't know. I know that's like an AA thing or where you always identify as an addict. And I'm not sure if I resonate with that. But I will say I am a recovered sex addict or a recovering sex addict. And for me, polyamory was a way, not really, it wasn't even really polyamory because it was deceitful. It was cheating. I was cheating as a way. I was looking for, in my first marriage and in my relationship with Vanessa, because I had a codependent relationship with both of them, my need for love wasn't being met. I wasn't finding my mother's love, right? And really, it was because I wasn't loving myself. And that's what really healed that wound, is when I was able to love myself. So I was cheating to trying to find that fix. And that's how you become the addict, right? Because ultimately addicts are really just looking for love. And they try to find it in substances or in toxic relationships or whatever it is, whatever your addiction is. And you fail every time. And that's why you need the next fix. It wasn't until Vanessa inspired me by choosing to stop being codependent on me and start setting her boundaries. She inspired me with her growth of loving herself, because that when you enforce your boundaries, when you say, you know what, I'm not going to accept this abuse from you anymore, that's loving yourself. That inspired me to start loving myself. And it was a long road to healing. It took years, but her taking that step and like saying, that's it, no more. You're not going to infringe on my boundaries anymore. I needed to hear that. And I think sometimes, and I know you're going to talk about this in the delusions. So I was kind of like leading into that. But I viewed it, I spiritualized it, the cheating, right? Like, yeah, it was technically wrong because I'm lying, but I'm just trying to feel loved, right? And I tried to convince myself that it was okay. And that's really where I was deluding myself. But now we've moved into a place of where we're really studying sacred marriage and looking to develop sacred marriage in the sense of focusing all our energy on ourselves. And we know we can't fulfill all of our needs. We know we have to fulfill our needs with our connection to God, with our connection to source. That's how we get our needs met. That's how we get renewed. And then we can come together with where our boundaries meet. There can be true intimacy. And that's really where we are right now in terms of we're developing that. And we have never experienced more joy and more magic in our daily lives, in our daily relationship than we are right now. And every day.
Yes.
I can't even describe it.
No, and it's, sometimes we look back at it and we're in bed watching TV and then just laughing at something totally ridiculous and just laughing and enjoying ourselves. And there's this moment of like, whoa, how did this happen? 5 years ago, we were throwing stuff at each other and yelling at each other.
I spent nights in jail.
But one of the other things that I wanted to say is in regards to the no one person can meet all of your needs. I think as a society, one of the issues that we have is a lack of community. And I don't think that it's an accident. I think that it's intended to be this way to prevent us, to keep us separate, to keep us at each other's throat in this this mentality of trying to be the best, and in doing so you forget your community. And I think with community we can come together, we can talk, we have elders, we have people who have been in our situation. Sometimes we are in we were talking about this earlier, that in our society we have these friendships sometimes where you come to your friends and you tell them, oh, my partner did this, and they're like, just dump him. Or,
what a piece of shit.
Just dump her. Or,
oh, fuck that guy.
Yeah. And so
or fuck that girl.
Yeah. And so we're not in a place where we're having conversations with elders in our community, with people who are on a spiritual path. That's not as common anymore. And I think that it's very much a missing component to how we relate to others. And in that sense, we wouldn't put all of that pressure on our partners to fulfill every single one of our needs, right? If we have friends who we can talk to about certain things that maybe your partner is just not there yet. There were times in our relationship that I was on a path to healing and Danny wanted nothing to do with it. And I would share things about my healing and I would just get a blank stare from him, and I was like, this guy thinks I'm crazy. What is she even saying? And so
you're speaking another language.
So what Danny is talking about, this massive change happened when I went to visit my best friend. And at the time she wasn't my best friend, but she was somebody that I met that was on a spiritual path. And she had invited me. She gave me an opportunity. She said, anytime you need to just get away for a couple of days, come come here, come to my house, and, you know, we can talk, we can hang out, we could just have like a girls' weekend or something. And I did that. And as I was complaining about my relationship with Danny, she kept asking me questions about myself. What do you want? What do you need? What is, you know, what is triggering you about this particular thing? And she had me looking at myself so deeply that it broke something. It broke that codependency. And I came back from that trip and I told him, I love you. I love you very much, but I love myself too. And these are my boundaries. If you can't stick to these boundaries, if you can't respect these boundaries, we can go our separate ways. I'll still love you. I just won't be with you because I need this for myself. And the truth is, during this relationship where we were struggling, I kept waiting for him to heal. When he heals, I'll be able to heal too. And my healing was dependent on him. And visiting Carla and having this other perspective of, no, you can heal on your own. You don't need to wait for him to heal. I began to do the healing work more wholeheartedly at that point. I was more willing to do the work for myself, not for him, not for the relationship, but for me. And when I did that, it created this, I guess almost like a sense of panic, I think, like, oh my God, she's going to leave me because she's healing. And at that point, he had the choice, either run away or step up and start doing his healing as well.
Yeah. And for me, my love for Vanessa, which comes from my higher self, it comes from a spirit or a soul level. It's when you love someone unconditionally, you're channeling God. And my love for Vanessa was a channeling from God. It was God flowing through me and loving her in a pure way, even though my ego was interfering and doing these things to disrupt the relationship. That was there. And so I was able to use that love to overcome some of the challenges my ego was throwing in and start to heal myself. And it really inspired me. Seeing her heal, seeing her be more happy in the midst of the shit that I was doing was what inspired me. I saw her peace and love and joy starting to shine through. So I was like, oh, okay, there is healing. Let me try this too. And, you know, thank God. And that was the path. But you know what? If we weren't meant to be, and I think this is what happened in my first marriage, or I shouldn't say if we weren't meant to be, because I think I was meant to be with my first wife for a certain time, for a certain purpose. There were lessons I needed to learn. I think the idea that I should have been monogamous and stay with her for my whole life, despite the fact that our relationship was really toxic, even if it didn't look toxic to the outside world, because that was one of the problems, was that our relationship looked great from the outside looking in. It looked great on Facebook, but it wasn't, there was no intimacy. There was no depth because
of the many blockages on both sides. This, I think, kind of ties into this question here with the thoughts on narcissism.
Good. I wanted to address that. I'm glad you did that.
So go for it.
Well, what I was going to say was that the reason why, not to say that my ex-wife didn't have any of her own issues. Certainly she did, but I was very narcissistic. And I think narcissism is a disconnection from your true self. It's feeling unworthy, but creating a mask that you're better than everybody else or that you're in total control as a way to hide and bury that pain of feeling like you're worthless. So I don't know if I've ever said this on the show before, but when I first got together with my ex-wife, we were kids. We were like 16, 17 when we first started dating. And we were born again Christians. We were in the church. My mother was a very devout Christian. Her parents were very devout. And my mom had told me, this is God's chosen for you, but you're not worthy of her. Her parents echoed the same thing. You're not worthy of her. They didn't want us to be together. They were against our relationship. I was a secret. She kept me a secret for like 5 years. We dated in secret. So I was basically a mistress for 5 years. And it was devastating to my self-esteem. Now, I already had that mother wound of feeling like my mother didn't love me enough. And now add on top of this, my mother, my own mother, my lover, my God's chosen woman for me, and her parents and others, pastors, all telling me, you're not worthy of her. You don't belong together. My mother was telling me, you're not worthy of her, but you better do everything to make yourself worthy of her and hold on to her. And this was a lot of gaslighting, and it created such insecurity in me that I became the worst, like, classical narcissist that you could ever imagine. I built this persona, and many of you in the Ron Paul Liberty movement have seen that. You've seen it manifest as me being a celebritarian and, years ago when I was really in the spotlight or whatever, and having that arrogance. And I admit it fully. I was arrogant and narcissistic, but really what I was hurt. I felt unworthy, and I masked my unworthiness with this armor of narcissism.
And I think that sometimes when parents say things like that, I know that deep down there's this well-meaning thought, right? As a parent, you want what's best for your child. And if you feel that someone isn't living up to your standards, you tell them, and you hope that it's going to inspire them to be better for your child because you want what's best for your child. And, as a parent, for example, your mom, I'm sure that what she wanted was what was best for you. And she thought that maybe, sometimes,
she was trying to give me tough love, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're not good enough, but you can be, so do it.
Yes.
Instead of like being loving and encouraging.
Yeah. And, it comes from their own wounds and how they experience life as well. So I don't think that it's all intended to be abusive, but it is painful, especially when you're a teenager just trying to figure life out and just trying to find your place in the world. To hear this constantly, it can be very traumatic. And like you said, you were already coming from this deep mother wound. So it makes sense. And I think most people that are narcissists come from that perspective. There was a moment in time where they were told they weren't good enough, or where they felt they weren't good enough. Something clicked, and so the mask came on, and the mask is what creates the narcissism, what creates this idea or this delusion, like I have to prove that I'm better because I don't know that, and people probably don't know that because I'm probably not better, so I'm going to pretend to be better, and I'm going to make sure that they know that I'm better. And it's all just and it doubles down and doubles down and doubles down so much and holds on to that story because it is so afraid that story will crumble and people will find out the truth, that I'm not good enough. That's what narcissism is. Danny was experiencing that in the very beginning of our relationship. And there were many times where he would tell me that I was crazy for things. Yeah. And the truth is, it was funny. Recently, we were having a conversation about a friend who was saying that they weren't fulfilled going out or something. And Danny was like, how could this person not realize that their partner wants to be fulfilling them? And then we kind of looked at each other, and he was like, I was doing the same thing. He was like, I was looking for fulfillment and I was never getting the fulfillment. And you were sitting here wanting to love me. And it's so when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, it's very difficult because you're confused. You know that they want love, but for some reason they're rejecting that love from you and looking for it elsewhere. And yeah, it can get to a point where, I was enabling him. I was absolutely enabling his addictions by allowing it, by not standing up for myself, by not enforcing my boundaries for a long time. And then I would drink and my toxic behaviors would come out as well. And it was just chaos. But like I said, somebody has to take the first step. Somebody has to say, wait a minute, I need to do this for myself. I need to heal for myself. And there's no doubt in my mind that if at that point he hadn't stepped up and started doing his healing work, I would have no problem in leaving. I was ready for what was best for me and for my highest good. And if that didn't include him, I was okay with it. I had to release attachment to the relationship and release attachment to him.
Yeah. And I want to say, as a recovering narcissist, that does not mean just because you can empathize with a narcissist and understand, oh yeah, this just really comes from not loving themselves, so they've put on this persona, it doesn't mean you tolerate their behaviors, them hurting you with their narcissism, their abuse, because narcissists are abusive. I steamrolled over my ex-wife. I did whatever I pleased, and if she didn't like it, I just screamed louder, and I was absolutely abusive. And I have since made, I've apologized for that, but I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, don't tolerate the behavior. When she set that boundary, I had to step up or step out. And so, Lisette saying she's having trouble forgiving her partner. She doesn't think she can trust him because of a betrayal. Set your boundaries. And if he steps up, awesome. Don't feel like you need to stay for the kids. I felt that way too. It's better for your children to see you modeling, setting your boundaries, and hopefully he steps up. But if he steps out, you're still going to be healthier. You're still going to be in a better position, even if it doesn't look like appearances, the nuclear family, the good Christian family, the white picket fence, all that. Even if it doesn't look like that, it is more important for your children to see you not taking abuse and compassionately setting your boundaries, just the same way she said to me, I love you. I want to be with you, but you have to heal because you're hurting me because you're not healed. And you have to make that choice now. And see where it goes. And, and continue to pray for him, because those prayers absolutely have effect. They work. I know Vanessa was praying for me.
Yes, especially if you truly feel it. If you truly feel compassion and love for the person, those prayers are not just in vain. They're not just out in the ethers and not, not meaning anything. And, you can help your children pray for the person too. It's important to pray for the well-being, for them to see it modeled, right? I don't agree with this person, but I care for them and I love them and I want what's best for them. I'm going to pray for that. And your children will be a part of that, and they'll be able to see that wholesome love, and that is unconditional love. And sometimes I think we get confused, right? We think unconditional love means accepting abusive behaviors. That's not the case. Unconditional love is loving them, having compassion for them, but setting your boundaries. Like I told him, I love you unconditionally. I understand all of the things that you've done in the past, and I understand why you did them. I love you despite the fact that you did all of those things, but these are my boundaries. And, we don't have to stay in a relationship together. If this doesn't work for you, that's totally cool. But, we just are going to have to go our separate ways in that sense.
I'm going to say something, and Lisette, I want you to hear this in the spirit that I'm saying it. Staying for the kids without healing yourself and providing space for your husband to heal, which providing space for him to heal means setting that boundary, letting him know there's a big problem. Now, I'm sure he knows there's a problem in terms of the betrayal, but the fact that you still can't trust him is a problem that he needs to be aware of, so that he can have the chance to make up for it or to earn your trust back. There was a long period in our relationship where I had to learn I had to earn her trust back. There were practical steps I had to do, checking in with her. Hey, honey, I'm at work. I'm going to be home a little bit later than normal. Like earning trust, right? Because I was deceiving and I was going out and not telling her or making up a lie about where I was, right? So I had to earn that trust back. So there may be consequences that he needs to be willing to face. And part of that is you not saying, well, I don't think he's going to live up to this, so I can't put this out there, because if I tell him this, it may break up the marriage and I need to keep it together for the kids. Don't do that. That is toxic monogamy. That is being monogamous just for the sake of monogamy and not because it's a healthy relationship. So, and Lisette, I love and appreciate you. We've had a lot of conversations over the years. since we first met all those years ago when you invited me on that podcast that you used to produce. And so I'm aware of some of your beliefs, and I resonate with you a lot. And so I really, I'm praying for you too. And I hope that you really come through this. And you know what, if you want to reach out to us privately, we'd be happy to discuss things, deeper. And I'm going to volunteer.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to volunteer Vanessa.
But again, that's what we mean, right? Community is so, so important. And I think as a society, we have this, again, I've said this many times, we have this Instagrammable social media life, and it's all perfect and it's all the great moments. And it's very scary to be vulnerable and share the things that you're going through with other people because you're afraid they're going to judge you. They're going to talk about you. Yeah. And because again, we live in this type of society that's all about what looks best or what seems best. And the truth is, we're all on a journey. We're all on a path. We're all unpacking things, unlearning things, and we're all healing in some way or another. And so it's beautiful to be able to share with others your experience. The reason why we do this live stream is to talk about the stuff that we've gone through, because we went through a lot of it in silence. We went through a lot of it alone. There were a few people that knew, and we were very selective about who we told things to, because we didn't want the judgment. We didn't want, we wanted support, and not everybody is supportive. So I think it's so important to have this sense of community. It's important to be vulnerable. A lot of the stuff that we share is very private, and at times it's scary to share these things because we don't know how people are going to react. We certainly don't share our intimate secrets live on this stream for all the trolls and their nasty comments that they make. And there are, we see them. But we share it because we know we get emails too about people telling us how much that our story resonated with them because they went through the same thing, and how it inspired them to take steps in their own healing. That's the reason we're doing this. So if it helps one person, if it helps two people, that is more, it's enough for us, right? That to create that sense of you're not alone. A lot of us go through this. And believe me, once you start kind of opening up about it, you realize how many people have gone through similar things or are going through similar things. So again, community is so important. I had a conversation with someone else today, another man friend of mine, who is also afraid of losing his kids because his partner, and this is probably less common. It's probably not less common. It's less common for men to admit they're being abused by their female partners. And another note, this is not gender specific. Like, these techniques apply to same-sex couples or however you identify. Everyone in every relationship, there is a dominant masculine and a dominant feminine. But he was also afraid of losing his kids, and he's tolerating abuse from his partner to maintain a relationship with his kids. And so Lisette, the fear is real, and I get it. I went through it. I was afraid of losing access to my son too. I stayed in my marriage longer than I should have for that reason. So I totally get it. And community is not just like, oh, you have a friend that you share stuff with, and then your friend tells you, well, he's a jerk, just leave him. Community is accountability. It's, okay, he's triggering you. What's it triggering? Right? Or when you are being abused, holding space for you. Like, my God, I'm so sorry you're going, empathy. I'm sorry that you're going through that. Is there anything I can do to help you? People that you can rely on, not people that you're going to go to where they're going to preach at you or tell you it's your fault. Why are you staying in the relationship? This, that, and the other thing. They're going to gaslight you, or that on the other end of the spectrum, that they're going to enable you, where they're going to say, they're not going to call you out and say, listen, he's abusing you, set your boundaries. That's all part of community. Like, that's what real community is. That's exactly what Dirk just said. Doesn't always look friendly. Support is an enablement. That is 100% true. Sometimes it's hard. My best friend has had to tell me, my best friend has had to tell me some difficult things at times. Like, oh, well, have you looked at this? Or have you looked at that? And I'm like, damn it.
Damn it, I just wanted you to take my side.
I just wanted you to blame him. But it's important. It's so, so important. Another thing from this book was that obstacles we encounter in relationships are less obstacles than they are catalysts. And so the more work that we do, Danny used to laugh because I was like, it's almost like I'm embracing the arguments and the fights and the discussions, and not because I love to fight, but because as we work through these things, we become closer. And so if I do get triggered by something and I get irritated by it, now I want to look at it. What is it? What is this tiny thing that triggered me about this comment that I can look at so that in the future that doesn't happen, and we can enjoy more of the beauty and the happiness and the laughter that we get to experience on a daily basis now. I mean, like we said, it's magic every day at this point, and it's because we've done so much of the work. Because we had trigger fests early on, we had to look at a lot of those childhood wounds that were keeping us separate for many, many years.
Yeah. I want to, just on the community thing, before we move on to one of the other delusions that we sometimes delude ourselves with. I think it's probably a lot easier because women tend to be a little bit more emotion centered and empathetic as their natural state, or I should say that society programs men to believe empathy is weakness. Men tend to be less empathetic, and therefore it is harder for us to build community with each other, with other men. It's much easier to confide in females, in our lover or our female friends, than it is to confide in our male friends. I recently have discovered a community that I'm going to share with you guys, and Derek, Jason, and Nicholas, I feel like this will really resonate with you. It's not, hold on a second. Oh, here we go. Sacred Sons is a male, basically it's about doing shadow work and embodying our masculinity in a healthy way, in a healthy, balanced way, balancing masculine and feminine. This group, I have just been resonating so hard. I've been attending they're doing a weekend online conference this weekend, and I've been attending a bunch of the sessions, and it's sacredsons.com. You can check it out. I've been attending some of the sessions, and it's really been such an amazing thing. And they have an app. It's a social media network for the app. And I'm telling you, I met up with two guys yesterday from the app that live here in Brooklyn, and we had some amazing conversations. I had conversations with total strangers that I don't have with my best friends. And in a way that makes me sad that I can't be as open with my best friends as I was with these two strangers, but they were just resonating on that level where we could just share that way. And that's not to say I'm not developing that I am with my best friends also. But if you need community, if you need support, other men who are on the same path and are doing their shadow work and are seeking unity, consciousness, oneness with God, with source, it's a great network, sacredsons.com. And I can't endorse it enough. It's been so beautiful, and it's only been this weekend. I only found it a few days ago.
Actually, it was recommended.
It was recommended to me a year ago, but I wasn't ready yet, and it was only finally now. So if you're a man or masculine and you're looking for community, then check out Sacred Sons. And maybe it doesn't resonate with you, but at least check it out, because I have a feeling it will. And Jason and Derek, you guys will definitely appreciate this. And
look for your community. I mean, it's really interesting once you open yourself up to that. I have a friend who I've known for a few years, and we recently decided to start creating sister circles where we meet once a month and we share and support each other in our healing paths. And it's interesting because we've known each other for years, and all of a sudden we've created this group, and it's exciting to be a part of a group with other women who are also on a healing path. And as one person brings up a topic, the other one realizes, oh yeah, I've struggled with that too, and this is how, we share our healing process. And it's so important. We don't realize how important it is until we are actually a part of it and realize, yeah, I was looking for this. I needed this in my life. Other than, otherwise we go through life just scrolling through social media and comparing ourselves to, what other people have curated to share on social media networks. One of the things that we wanted to also discuss were from the book Transformation Through Intimacy are the relationship infecting delusions. So sometimes within monogamous relationships, and I'm pretty sure that that all of these things apply to any type of relationship, not just a monogamous relationship, or I think even in non-monogamous relationships we can apply some of these things. The truth is that a lot of times we avoid being intimate with our partners, and we avoid the conflict, we avoid the difficulties, we avoid the uncomfortable conversations. And so we have these delusions. We say these things that will help us avoid the deep conversations. And like I was saying, the conflict is a catalyst. The conflict helps you go deeper in your relationship, look at what's connect on a deeper level to your partner. So one of them is, I won't confront you because I don't want to hurt you. And we say this often, right? We tell our partners, oh, I don't want to argue. I'm guilty of this. There are times where Danny's looking at me and he's like, what's wrong? I can tell that something's wrong. And then I'm just like, oh, nothing. Don't worry. I'm just going to work it out in my head.
I'm like, don't do that. Tell me.
And that, again, it avoids the truth is, I don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation. I don't want to say something to him that I feel is going to trigger him or cause a reaction that then I have to deal with. So I avoid saying anything. I'm giving you what you want because it helps keep the peace. That's another one. We just give in, and that's, again, enabling. It helps keep the peace, but am I truly happy if I'm not telling you, if I'm going along with something that I don't necessarily agree with? Trading sex for security within a relationship is not prostitution. And that's a tough one, because a lot of people, sometimes you feel uncomfortable, not in the mood to have sex, but you don't want to have an argument. You don't want to upset your partner. That's something to look at. It's important to have those conversations. It's important to let your partner know when you're not comfortable with something, because I think your partner also wants you to be in the mood to have sex with them when they have sex with you.
Yeah.
I can't live without you. And that's a big one. I think a lot of people use that one, and it sounds very romantic and it's very well-meaning, but the truth is it is
Codependent.
Yeah, it's codependent. It's manipulation. Making nice makes things better. Again,
I'm gonna kill myself, right? Like that comes out of that.
Yeah.
If you break up with me, I'll kill myself. Like that kind of thing. Those kind of ultimatums. That's narcissistic codependency. It's toxic.
Making nice simply keeps what is not working in a relationship from any telling intervention. So when we avoid the conflict, we aren't really getting to know our partner. We're just saying, all right, I'm gonna keep the peace and avoid having confrontation with you. But do you really know your partner at that point? Are you really doing the deep work? I'm doing the best I can. And a lot of us use this excuse. I'm doing the best I can.
Mm-hmm.
I did this thing, but it's also an excuse. We're not really being accountable for our actions. It's easier to just say, everybody's doing that. He's doing the best he can. It's an excuse. I didn't mean to hurt you. And I think a lot of us feel that we don't mean to hurt our partners. But it keeps us from being accountable. It keeps us from taking responsibility for our actions. I don't know what I'm feeling. I'm guilty of that one too, because there are many times where I don't want to have an argument and I simply say, I just don't really know what I'm feeling right now. I need some time to figure it out. And the truth is, if I were to take the time in that moment to have the conversation and say, look, right now I'm feeling frustrated. I think it's coming from this. We could work it out together. We could figure it out together.
Mm-hmm.
And an emotional affair is not really cheating. Anything that is deceiving to your partner, anything that you would feel uncomfortable if your partner saw or heard, is cheating. It's deceitful. And I think that if you are in a place where you can't work something out with your partner and you have to turn to someone else to work that out, you're avoiding the relationship with your partner. You're separating yourself further from your partner. And again, that's not to say that your partner is going to fulfill every single one of your needs. If your partner is not in a place where they want to do the work with you, then yeah, you have options at that point. You can set boundaries and say, hey, I'm in this relationship with you. I want to do the work with you. Are you in it with me or not? And, if this is not your thing, if you're not ready for healing, then we can go our separate ways. I love you. I love you deeply.
Or it doesn't even have to be that dramatic, right? Just be honest and authentic about what you're doing. I want to work this thing out with you. You're not willing to. I'm going to go discuss it with so-and-so. I need a female perspective. I have this female friend and I want to discuss it with her because you're refusing to, right? Just be honest and be authentic and be willing to face the consequence of that, right? That's why we hide things, because we don't want to face the consequences of it. We don't want to rock the boat. Whatever it is, we're really just avoiding something. So being your true self, being honest, being completely transparent is more important than whether or not you're sharing something with another woman, right? Like if you're confiding in another woman,
or another man,
or another man. If you're having an emotional affair and it's really like, it's not really about being romantically attracted to the other person as much as just needing that perspective or needing that shoulder, be honest about it. Or if you feel like, hey, I'm attracted to this other person, it's like, you're not meeting my needs. You're not really fully engaged in this relationship. So I feel an attraction to somebody else. I want to explore that. So maybe we should take a break. Mm-hmm. And whatever that looks like, right? Like it could look like a total breakup and I'm going to date the other person. It could look like, let's take a break and, we can still see each other, but I'm also going to see this other person. Whatever works for you and whatever agreement you can come to with your partner. And that may be what that partner needs to hear to step up and do the work. Or it may be what that partner needs to hear to decide, well, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore and walk away. And then you're free.
Yeah.
Right. Either way, you're coming out with honoring your true self.
And we're not suggesting setting up ultimatums for your partner to say, if you don't do this, if you don't have this conversation with me, I'm going to leave you and go have this conversation with someone else.
Right.
There's also empathy. There's also trying to have a conversation with your partner, being patient with their process as well, because not everybody is ready to step up for it. There were times that Danny and I were having, trying to have conversations and he just wasn't ready for them. Right.
Yeah,
exactly. This can be problematic, for sure. I think it depends on what your boundaries are and what that even means for you as a person. Like your work husband, like you said, if you're having intimate conversations with your work husband or your work wife, what does that look like? And would you be comfortable with your partner knowing what you're talking about, what you're sharing with that person? Mm-hmm. Number 10 is sex is supposed to make me feel better. That's another delusion.
That's how I got into my addiction, was trying to feel better, right? I was medicating with sex and, 15 minutes after the experience was over and the afterglow wears off, I needed the next fix.
Yeah.
And I felt alone and unloved again.
And so what Dr. Master says here is, what if we came to sex already happy, already relaxed, already open and loving and energized, instead of expecting sex to produce all of this for us? If you are coming into this already fulfilled, the experience is way better than if you're coming to it from a place of need. Because now you're assigning, he uses the term slave labor to sex. That's what you're making sex. It's slave labor. This thing is going to make me happy. This thing has a job now. It's not an expression. You have to please me. Yeah.
I want to tie those two things together. The emotional affair and sexual affair together, to take it a step further, right? We were talking about before sacred marriage, and I forget how you put it, but I want to take it a step further to say, now the way I look at it is my energy, especially sexual energy and romantic energy, is very powerful because there's a lot of passion that's behind it, right? That goes into it.
Now that we've removed all of the blockages that have kept it suppressed, it's more free flowing.
Right. So I want to take that passion and that energy, and if I'm scrolling Instagram and looking at Instagram models and be like, oh yeah, that's taking. I mean, I'm being silly about it, but it's taking energy away from her. That's energy that could be directed to her for us to have amazing experiences, and not just sexual experiences, but romantic experiences, just love. It's energy that if I'm flirting with the girl at Starbucks, or I have a work wife that I'm directing energy to, it's energy that I'm stealing that belongs to her, that I'm not giving to her. And it's reducing the quality of our relationship. And when it was put to me like that, I think you initially put that to me. Did that come from? I don't remember.
So. It's possible.
But when it was put to me like that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, because I would be on Instagram and I mean, I wasn't obsessed with it, but yeah, I followed a lot of accounts of like these sexy cosplay models. And I started to unfollow all those accounts now because I'm like, I want to channel all that energy into my relationship with you so that we can have the like best possible sex, the best possible communication, the best possible everything.
Intimacy.
The most intimate intimacy.
Exactly.
And it's so much more fulfilling, that true intimacy.
And it especially because it comes from a place of, this is what I desire to do, not this is what I'm obligated to do.
Exactly.
I'm not suppressing my desires because it's bad for me to lust over women on Instagram.
Or it's porn. Nicholas mentioned porn before. Porn is another way that you drain your energy that's meant for your partner.
Yeah, and so all of these things, and it's not to say that anything is good or bad, right? It's your choice. Where do you want to put that energy into? Where do you want to focus that energy? And yeah, you could spill some energy into porn. You can spill some energy into Instagram. You can spill some energy into the girl at Starbucks. And then when you come into your relationship, where is the energy? Now you have less of that energy. You've depleted some of that. Yeah. Now, if you are harnessing all of your energy and putting it into this relationship, then your experience is going to be a lot different. Again, not to say that that's the only way or that it's bad if you choose to have multiple relationships where you put energy here and energy there and energy there. If that's what you like, then go for it. If that feels good to you, then go for it. The way that we've found,
as long as it feels good to you, not because you're medicating an addiction or medicating pain, it feels good to you in your highest self, your highest and best self, right? Your authentic self. If there's a nagging feeling in the back of your mind, like, I'm not really comfortable with this, you're not honoring yourself.
And that's the thing.
You're either she was enabling me for a while, right? You're either enabling your partner, or you could be just enabling yourself. You could be enabling your own inner child who is throwing a temper tantrum. And that's not your true self. Your wounded ego and your shadow self is not your true self. Your shadow self are all the blockages, all the armor that you've put up to protect yourself from being hurt. We got to heal those things.
And we have to look at them. And I think a lot of us, we live in a society where we're constantly running, where we're constantly doing something, we're constantly distracted, and we don't have the time to stop and feel where there's resistance in our body, where there's a nagging feeling. Sometimes you think you're fulfilling a need, but like Danny said, 5 minutes later, you're like, I still have that need. Why didn't it get fulfilled by this thing that I thought would fulfill the need? Because you've reassigned the need. Danny's need for affection and attention, he then assigned it to sex. Sex is going to give me that. Sex is going to fulfill that. And then despite the fact that he was doing it and not fulfilling that need, he wasn't looking at the fact that, wait a minute, maybe that isn't really the need. Maybe there's something else. Where in my body am I feeling it? What age am I right now when I feel it? Paying attention to those things will lead you to what you truly need in that moment. And you can find ways to fulfill that need in a way that is true and authentic, and that doesn't depend on anybody else.
Right. There's nothing outside of you that you need. Yeah.
And
that really is it.
Yeah.
Now that neither one of us is looking outside of ourselves to heal or to be sustained, we can come together as two whole people and have a really intimate relationship. That's crazy.
Yeah. And and again, that's where that comes in. Our desire then for conscious monogamy is not a desire of, I need him to only be mine. I need him to give me all of this attention. I need him to, fulfill all of my needs. It's a place of, I like you. I like spending time with you. Yeah. I love watching TV with you. I love going on walks with you. I love spending, going out to have coffee or sitting on the couch and reading together. Yeah, I like that. And I want to do that with you. And I want to get to know you even more. The things, we believe that we know our partners. We've been together for X amount of years. And so I know everything there is to know about my partner. And that is not true. And as we heal, we evolve. As we learn new things, we evolve. And when you evolve, there's more things to get to know. There's more things. You
might know your triggers. You may know your partner's triggers. That's not knowing their authentic self. That's just knowing their mask.
Exactly. And so it's really beautiful to get to that place. And like we said before, if you get to that place of healing and you want to engage with multiple partners because you have this abundant love that you want to give to others, that's great. I think, as we said in the beginning, it really is a matter of asking yourself, how am I entering this relationship? Am I entering it from a place of abundance, or am I entering it from a place of lack? And if you're entering it from a place of lack, there's a lot of stuff to look at there. We have community. We're here for you. If you guys want to talk, if you guys want to ask questions, if you just need support, believe me, we would be more than happy to offer that to you. Like we said, we're not experts. This is just our experience. But as we go through things, as we experience stuff, we can share that with each other, and we can help minimize some of those stumbles. I mean, if we had people perhaps sharing their experiences with us, maybe we wouldn't have gone through all of those things, but maybe it was just necessary for us to experience that. And that's totally okay for us. I think we're in a place where we've accepted that our path was the path that we needed to travel. And I'm certainly very grateful for that path. I'm grateful for all of the lessons that I learned in that path. And yeah, I think it's always important to look at at those triggers and try to figure out what it is that what wound we're touching, what wound we're poking at. I was talking to a friend yesterday and sharing that That's To Be a Man by Dr. Robert Augustus Masters. He has a lot of YouTube videos, also interviews with him and his wife. They're really amazing. Definitely give them, go check them out. Reading this book was super helpful in me being able to understand Danny's perspective and being able to
it's super helpful as a man to have someone who understands balanced masculinity. And, a lot of the stuff that he covers in the books is also what they're teaching in the Sacred Sons. There are, it sounds like, I'm just really excited about the Sacred Sons because the content is amazing, and they have in the app, they have like weekly Zoom calls you can jump in on every topic imaginable. Sex. I did one about sex this morning. Great stuff, really great stuff. So check it out.
All right. It looks like we're 15 minutes over our time.
Yeah, that's cool. Everybody stuck around. We appreciate that. And
thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your comments. Feel free to reach out to us with any other comments, ideas for topics we could cover. We're always happy to read your comments. Feel free to email us. We love reading your emails also. So thank you. Danny's going to share our social media networks so you could follow us there.
Okay, cool. So, we're on all the big, I give this spiel every week, but we're on all the big social media networks, right? So you can find us Sovereign in the City on basically every major network. But I want to talk about Minds.com and Float app. These are both two privacy-centric and also censorship-free social media platforms. The big tech companies are openly admitting now they're going to censor anti-establishment or anti-status quo content. So basically anything the government just deems as, fake news, they're censoring. But Minds.com and Float app do not censor. They do not sell your information. They are private networks. So check them out and support them. And there's a couple other ones, but I like these two because they have the best functionality. They function a lot like Facebook does in terms of, the feel of it. So you're not like losing features.
Or if there are any that you guys know of that you think work well, let us know. We'd love to check them out.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely make suggestions. So we appreciate that. Thank you for joining us. And we hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful Sunday. It's a beautiful day in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So we're going to go out and get some fresh air now.
Happy Sovereign Sunday, guys. Thank you. And see you guys next week.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.